Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
How's everyone doing out there? Can you hear me? Can you hear me over these? Holy jeez. Maybe it's not just me who's still hearing those today. Welcome, everyone. Winnipeg Sports Talk. Michael Remis here, hosting for Hustler, who is away at Aikens Lake. Thank you all for joining in. I am so pumped to be here talking about another Bombers win, 9-0. Absolutely incredible performance last night. We will have on Darrin Bauming shortly. Who's come else? Murat on the Jets. Ken Wiebe as well on the golf tour. And Lee Hacksaw Hamilton on the NFL. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I do have to thank, before we get going, talking about the incredible game last night. Canadian Club, DQ, Nick and Nicky DQ, 4 locations in Winnipeg, Princess Auto, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, Not Auto Corp, Little Brown Jug, Coolbet, Culligan Water, F Apparel, Vita Health, Wallace, and also Aikens Lake, where Hustler is now being a master angler, catching those trophy fish. And what a game last night. The Bombers coming in. We talked all about it. At least we were talking about it. I don't think the team was. The tough schedule, the short week, the games in, 6 games in 32 days. But you never heard that from the team. They always talk about everything's perfect conditions. And to be honest, I think off the bat in the first quarter, it looked like a team that was on a short week. Zach Collaros, he had the perfect game, highest QB rating of any quarterback this season against Calgary. Didn't get off to a hot start, throwing interception. Montreal was able to take advantage. However, it's kind of the theme we've seen when teams get into the red zone against the Bombers. They don't get touchdowns. They get field goals. And while the Bombers, struggled with time of possession and putting drives together on offense, they were only down 3 points after the first quarter, 3-0. And it was that when they were down, they needed to score some points. They put a big drive together. Dalton Schoen, league leading, 7th receiving touchdown. He had 5 catches, 58 yards. What a rookie season it's been for him. And it looked like the Bombers were going to put some more points on the board at the end of the half, but it was another interception from Zach Collaros. I think it was some miscommunication with him and Drew Wolotarski. And you heard, they hadn't played great, but they were still leading. And you saw Dalton Schoen on the broadcast after the half saying, hey, I don't think we played great, lots to clean up. It kind of looked like the game was slipping away a little. Montreal outscoring the Bombers 11-7 in the third quarter. But it was the fourth quarter where the team, I don't know what it was, they put their heads down and powered through whatever fatigue they were feeling, scoring 21 points, starting with that missed field goal from Montreal. And who was it? Rasheed Bailey with the touchdown. Janarian Grant with the kick return touchdown. I thought this was going to be kind of like the Edmonton game where the Bombers didn't play well, but then this time they were going to lose. I thought, oh no, did I jinx them? Asking Ed yesterday, saying, are they going to have a perfect season? People thought that I jinxed them, but when the fourth quarter comes, you've seen it for so long. I don't know what it is. I don't know if you can teach us when it's the fourth quarter or when it's goal line defense. You saw them stopping Montreal turnover on downs in the first. Holding teams to field goals. Bombers seem to step up, and they keep doing it over and over again. One thing I want to ask the chat, who are you giving the game ball to? I'm trying to decide. I'm going to ask Darrin this when he comes on. I think there's a lot of people. Brady Oliveira, there were a lot of concerns about him. I might have had some too. I mean, they kept handing the ball. He just running it into the back of the O-line, basically into the back, and for no yards. And not yesterday, 17 carries, 92 yards, 5.4 average, 15 was his longest. And he's also doing it in the receiving game. Huge catch, 35-yarder. One catcher. Drew Wolotarski, who had a pretty good game last game. He had 5 catches for 90 yards, including the huge fourth quarter bomb, 41-yarder to set up Dakota Prukop. Dalton Schoen was kind of quiet, but he did score a touchdown, 58 yards. Janarian Grant, huge, absolutely huge fourth quarter for him. He had that catch and run on a ball that wasn't thrown great if you're going to run a screen, but he's able to accelerate so fast. He had that punt return touchdown as well, which really gave the team some breathing room. I'm reading the chat. I see Winston Rose, who had the big pick as well. Some people saying Rose. I'm trying to read all these and do this. So Jackson Jeffcoat had, I see mentions for him. His return had a big sack. And the one thing too, when the Bombers, when they finally got the lead in the fourth quarter, and it was Montreal's turn to follow up, the defense stepped up, putting pressure on Trevor Harris, sacking him and getting 2 interceptions. And Brady Oliveira with the icing on the cake. Al says, give it to Coach. Grant Rose Oliveira. A lot of people saying Janarian Grant for the game ball. I'm not sure. I think you could give it to a lot of candidates. You want to give it to these, the air horns. As I shout over these, I do want to give a shout out. While the game was going on, oh my God, this is horrible. While the game is going on, I have to give some respect to the troll Twitter game of the Montreal Alouettes social media team. I guess they were getting a lot of messages. Here it is. We like the horn. Stop messaging us. So apparently a lot of people I didn't really notice. I gotta be honest, I didn't think it was that terrible, but then someone's like, this is awful. I can't watch the game. And I was like, yeah, you know what? Maybe it does kind of suck. And then Montreal got so annoying on Twitter that I'm like, yeah, screw this horn. It shouldn't be there. You shouldn't be able to have, that should only be able to use in emergency situations, right? You can't use that at a football game. What? And then Montreal again on Twitter. Oh, wait, that's not the tweet. Hold on. Where's the other tweet? I had it ready. I don't have it here. They trolled the Bombers about, here it is. Oh, here. And then someone says, this is why no one takes your Mickey Mouse franchise seriously to them, I guess, in response to the air horn. And they respond, classy. We can't wait for Pierre-Luc Dubois to be a Hab, by the way. I enjoyed this. I thought this was funny. We'll wait and see. However, Habs fans got a rude awakening yesterday knowing that Jonathan Huberdeau won't be signing there, as he just signed the 8-year deal. And the Bombers, showed it to the Bombers, who responded back. That's not the right one. Who responded back with this at the end of the game. Their social media team has been absolutely crushing it, just like this pressure thing crushed this horn after the game. So well done, Bombers social media team. It was an entertaining game. I thought, is this going to be the one they lose to Montreal? At least if you're going to lose to a good team. Lose to BC. Lose to Calgary. Don't lose to an East team. But what a game it was yesterday. And they pulled it out just like seemingly they always do. Fourth quarter, coming up big. The defense, special teams, offense. It was everyone in. Here, Mike O'Shea spoke after the game about what he saw from his squad. And here's the head coach, Mike O'Shea.
They took the ball away early and often, and our guys just kept on grinding, digging. I think that 104-yard drive was pretty special. And then defense started taking the ball away a little bit and making plays. And I think that's a really good win.
Look at that one, and you can see a couple turning points. You mentioned that 104-yard drive. Do you feel like that kind of got the offense on board after a pretty solid effort from the defense early on?
No, I just think it is a good drive, whether it's the right time or not. I think Janarian's punt return touchdown the timing of that it's right on time. So it's good that all phases contributed.
This game was 14-all at one point and kind of brought the hammer down in all three phases. That's got to be the most appealing thing at the end of a long stretch of games.
Yep. Yeah, the guys found a way to, give a little more, which is, that's damn good. They're always thinking of their teammates and making sure they're getting it done right for them. So for them to to be able to give more like that is pretty special.
Found a way to give a little more. That was the Bombers yesterday, and we've seen that so often in the Grey Cup, in the West Final last year. This year, against Calgary, against Edmonton, when it looked like they didn't have their A game. There it was, and I'm pleased to be joined. Oh, yeah. Before we get to Darrin, I got to say to everyone, hey, if you're in here, thank you for tuning in. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It tells YouTube we got some quality content here, and it's more likely to recommend it to other people who might be interested. We're closing in on 8K subs. Help us get there. We got a bunch yesterday. I think we had a really nice number coming in to today, 70 or 7,969, just a nice number. So let's see if we can get to 8K. And also, other channels. Bonfire Sports. Great post-game last night with Darrin and Zach. Pleased to welcome Darrin Bauming to the show from Bonfire. Darrin, what's up, man? Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, good to be with you, Remo. Love the studio you got going on there.
Yeah, I'm going solo live from WST Studios. Here to talk about that Bomber game last night. Winnipeg winning 35-20 over Montreal. First off, what's your initial thoughts of that game? What we saw last night with the Bombers gutting one out and under probably less than ideal conditions. You had the heat, the air horns. I don't know if you heard these. There they are.
Oh man, don't remind me. Don't remind us.
And also the tough schedule. How about that one last night, Darrin?
Yeah, it was really an incredible win by Winnipeg. 14-all going into the fourth quarter. Lots of giveaways by the Blue Bombers offense. 4 times they turned the ball over. Zach made some aggressive throws, got picked on a couple. The pass to Nick Dembski intercepted in the end zone by Ducoy. What a beautiful pass that was by Zach Collaros. And it's just one of those things where the defensive player made a heck of a play and pulled that away. But 4 giveaways, tie game on the road, as you mentioned, really tough travel schedule. The third of 3 straight road games, 5 days rest, all of that. Remo, I was asking the Blue Bombers and head coach Mike O'Shea this week, about the fatigue and the tiredness and the wear on the body and the rest. Asking Mike O'Shea, is this a dig deep moment for your team? He kind of, shooed that away. And he's like, every game's going to be tough. We got to, dig deep and give our full effort every week. Staying on message. That's the mantra. It's always been the same. Get to 1-0 every week. But the reality is what we saw from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers last night, in my opinion, was one of their most impressive games of the season. I know they didn't play well. I know offensively they allowed Montreal to pressure them a lot. I know defensively they played good enough at times and then were awesome when it mattered, as was the offense and the special teams. Janarian Grant had a great 23-yard hitch pass and run that really seemed to turn things around. Then Drew Wolodarski had that sticky finger catch down the sideline. And from there, Winnipeg just wouldn't let off the gas. That's why I was impressed. After playing a kind of mediocre game on the road, tired and the rest, with no bye weeks at all so far this season, while many teams have had 2 already, the way Winnipeg came out in the fourth quarter and just put their foot on the throat of their opponent and didn't let up, that was so very impressive to me, and I think shows just how dangerous this Winnipeg Blue Bombers team can be. You can never count them out. When they look like they're on the ropes, they dodge and swing and catch you with a left hook, and then suddenly the momentum is just absolutely turned in their favor. All 3 phases played so well when it mattered in the fourth quarter. It was muggy, it was hot. I imagine that those horns were incredibly annoying for the players on the field. Yeah, thanks so much, Mike. You thought it was annoying watching the game on TSN or listening. Imagine not being able to turn the volume down or not adjust the microphone levels like TSN did in the second half. Winnipeg did dig deep, and they showed a side of themselves I think a lot of people knew was there, but now they've shown it to everybody. Very, very impressive win to move to 9-0.
I asked the chat this question earlier. There's so many candidates. Who are you giving your game ball to? Are you giving it to Janarian Grant, who had the return and effective with some run game and short passes? Drew Woltarski, who had 90 yards. Is it on the defense? Jackson Jeffcoat, who returned. Winston Rose, interception. Or Brady Oliveira, who's really found his groove the last couple weeks. Who's getting your game ball, Darrin?
Those are all great choices. And, we debate these on the Bonfire postgame show, Game Day After Dark. We give out our Happy Honker Award, our Westwood Wide to the Right, the moment that kind of pisses us off or was stupid during the game. Walby's Warrior, the guy that just went to war for the Blue Bombers. And then we, give out our player of the game as well. And last night I gave it to Drew Woltarski. He was just there when the Blue Bombers needed him. Team high, 90 receiving yards, caught 5 of 7 targets, picked up a couple first downs, including one on second and long. He was just kind of there when the Blue Bombers needed him and made that really, really impressive stretched out catch in the fourth quarter to, keep things moving on a very impressive, game-changing 95-yard drive that Zach Collaros was able to orchestrate. But you're right. Winston Rose, I think, played his best game of the season. Jackson Jeffcoat comes back after missing a couple games, gets his first sack of the season, believe it or not. The defense, Adam Bighill with a great, a critical interception late in the game when Montreal was trying to scratch their way back into it. The offensive line, Brady Oliveira, 2 games in a row now where he has been over 100 combined yards. And you're right, seems to have found his rhythm and that confidence that maybe wasn't there as of late. Everybody contributed in this game. Zach Collaros throws 3 picks, but gets that drive when they needed him to, and hit some touchdowns when they needed him to. Winnipeg always plays complete football. They always get contributions from up and down the lineup, starters and backups and the rest. But I gave it to Drew Woltarski because he's just been a consistent piece this year. Has yet to have a game like he did last night in Montreal where he put up 90 yards.
Yeah, I put a question out to the chat here, and it seems to be pretty split between Woltarski, Grant, Oliveira, Rose. It just shows you what a team effort it was, all 3 phases. The defense, holding Montreal to field goal in the first half, and the offense, in the second and the fourth quarter as well. I mean, it feels like we're just sitting here just gushing over the Bombers. How do you not? I mean, again, they play great and win, and they play not their best game and win. I mean, do you have any areas of concern after this game? I mean, how could they don't play well and they still win? I don't know. Like, the team probably will say they'd like to clean up a couple things, but do you have any concerns after this?
Here's the thing to me, Mike. You watch the Winnipeg Jets last season, and they seemed to play to the level of their opponent. They would play really well against good teams. They play really poorly against some of those middling and lower end teams. Winnipeg, you could say, is similar in that sense. They had 2 close games against the Ottawa Red Blacks in weeks 1 and 2. Ottawa just got their first win of the season last week, so they had a really rough 6-game losing streak to start the season. Winnipeg had a scrappy middling game against Edmonton in Edmonton a couple weeks ago. They didn't play lights out against the Calgary Stampeders in their first of their 2 meetings this season. That was at IG Field about 3 weeks ago. The difference is Winnipeg never falters. The mental strength and mental toughness that they all collectively have, from Mike O'Shea to the position coaches and coordinators, all the way down to, the kicker and long snapper and Mark Leggio and Winnipeg native Mike Benson, and everybody in between, up and down. They never feel out of the game. They never worry about what has happened, not just on a week-to-week, game-to-game basis, but even play-to-play. If they have a bad play, big turnover, big defensive, play allowed, that sort of thing, it's flushed and gone. Zach Collaros likes to say snap and clear. That's what they do. They learn from what happened and they don't think about it again. That's coaching. That's veteran savvy. That's just something Winnipeg has really instilled deep in their culture. And, if they're playing to the level of their opponent, so be it. Maybe it's almost like a cat toying with a dying mouse. Don't just, swipe the throat right away. They kind of, meddle along and play the game and then win when they know they can strike and finish an opponent off. Are there concerns? Nothing glaring. The reality is this is a team that has won back-to-back Grey Cup championships with an off year in the middle, which is amazing to think of on its own. And now they've started a ridiculously difficult schedule. I know it's been a lot of East Division matchups, but the travel, no bye weeks, having players like All-Star center Michael Couture, perennial 1,000-yard receiver Greg Ellingson, Jackson Jeffcoat, Mercy Maston, Jesse Briggs out of the lineup for a long stretch of time. Guys are beat up, banged up, and bruised. However, they continue to play complete strong football, no matter their opponent, no matter the short week, no matter the rest, no matter travel or what have you. So are there concerns? I don't know how you would say there are real, actual concerns on a team that has straightened out their run game, looking at a kicker in Mark Leggio that looks consistent and smooth and confident, field goals, converts, and punting the football. And then, you just look at the talent on the roster up and down and how well they've been able to navigate first, even second stringers being out of the lineup and the depth stepping up and playing extremely well. So no, I don't have any concerns for this Blue Bombers team. Will they finish the season undefeated? I don't know. I might have put a couple bucks down on that. Some pretty good odds, on some of the sports books, but as of right now, I don't know how you can look past the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They're the class of the Canadian Football League. 3 of their remaining 9 games this season are on the road, with 3 bye weeks mixed in there as well. Still 2 games against the BC Lions. People forget they only have 1 loss this season. Of course, that came to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in Vancouver, but 2 more games against them, a very generous schedule as far as rest and home dates for Winnipeg. It's going to be a fascinating race to the finish here in the second half of the CFL season, particularly in the West, but also in the East where things are absolutely still wide open.
Yeah, 3 games coming up against Saskatchewan as well.
Right.
And I think you look at the Bombers record, yeah, they're 9-0, but some of these games, a couple things don't break right against Ottawa, Toronto as well. But I think when they played those heavy hitter teams like Calgary and BC, those were premier games, and BC was resting their starters by the end, and the Calgary game, just both were classics.
They really were.
You mentioned Mark Leggio. We had a lot of question marks about him heading into the season based on last year. I know the field goal didn't count because of, not leverage, but pyramiding. But I do agree. He's looked pretty good, and he did have a very key punt to pin them in at the end as well. I think any questions that we had about Mark Leggio, have definitely been quieted.
Does everybody out there remember their first job? Like, coming out of college or coming out of high school, trying to impress that boss, that real first job, like not cutting grass or working at the car wash like I did when I was younger, but that real first job where you wanted to perform. Were you lights out your first 6 months there? Were you lights out your first year there? No. It takes time. I think the smartest thing the Blue Bombers ever did was keep confidence in Mark Leggio. And yes, I understand they signed Ali Mortada and played him for a good stretch of the season last year. I understand they traded for Sergio Castillo, who, for my money, was the most outstanding player in the Grey Cup last year in Hamilton. But they stayed confident. They never shot him down. They said, just keep working, keep doing your thing. We know you can do it. He was outstanding at Western University in U Sports. during his college career. They just let him continue to grow at his own pace. And now here he is in year two for Mark Leggio, and kicking right now in a good way is an afterthought.
Yeah, speaking of another guy who's in the early stages of his CFL career, Brady Oliveira, we do have to mention him. I put out who we're giving the game ball to. 32% of the voters in chat think Wolitarsky, but next up is Oliveira. Very strong. He looked different in that game against Calgary, hitting the hole, having his longest runs of the season. And again, yesterday, I said on this show, over, was it 52 yards? He had that almost by the first half, 92 yards and 17 carries. He talked about his increased confidence, how the coaching staff and the team has believed in him this whole time. Even, maybe here we had concerns when he had the 8-yard game on 9 carries. But he looks different, contributing the receiving game. And I think it's just a case of a guy adjusting to his new full-time role in the CFL.
No question. And, I'm glad you brought up the receiving game, in particular last night. That one catch, to me, was huge. The play of the game. Like, unbelievable to have a traditional tailback, a big body power back like Brady Oliveira, do something unorthodox, send him straight upfield, and contested catch, like very well defended by the Montreal Alouettes. Yep. He was able to pull that in and kind of flip the field, get Winnipeg out of their own end and to midfield in the field position game, especially in a close game like it was in the first half. Absolutely huge play for Brady Oliveira. The thing I'll give Brady Oliveira maybe some of the most credit for was off the field. This past week, he spoke honestly and passionately about being a Winnipeg kid. Oak Park High School, he did go down to the States to play in the NCAA, but being drafted in the second round by his hometown team, playing for the team that he grew up loving and watching and idolizing a lot of those players, to now play for that team and get the criticism from his hometown fans. He admitted that was tough on him. He wants to perform. He wants to make everybody in his hometown proud. And that goes beyond his personal friends and family. He wants the fans of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers to appreciate him for good play and being a hometown product, like Nick Dembski, like Andrew Harris, like Jeff Gray, like Mike Benson, all members, current and former, of this Blue Bombers team. So for him to come out and speak about that following a 100-yard rushing game in Calgary a week ago really speaks to how honest he is, how genuine he is. And now we've seen him do it in back-to-back weeks with over 100 combined yards. So did Winnipeg's offensive line play particularly well? Yes and no. The pass rush from Montreal was hellacious. They were bringing the heat early and often, and you saw Zach Collaros struggle in extending plays and escaping out of the pocket, forced into throws maybe he didn't want to make. But they performed how they needed to in establishing that run game, a balanced offensive attack from offensive coordinator Buck Pierce. And now I think Brady Oliveira has a little bit of confidence and ammunition, knowing what he's capable of. Like, people forget, he was a 100-yard rusher week 1 last season when Andrew Harris was hurt in training camp. A tough start to this season, and people seem to be writing him off already. Don't write off Brady Oliveira. He is extremely strong between the ears and extremely strong and talented as a football player on the field as well.
Yeah, we're winding it down, Darren, but we haven't even mentioned the play of the quarterback, Zach Collaros. We have all our game balls going to Wolitarsky, Grant, Oliveira, Rose, whoever you want. Zach, maybe not his best game. He had no interceptions against Calgary, 3. I do agree. I think the Dembski ball, well thrown. Dembski had it in his hands and it seemed to bounce off, and the DB just stole it from him. The Wolitarsky one, I think you'd like to have that one. The end of the first half, you'd like to have that one. I think he's targeting Wolitarsky, but there are some he just needs one play. The deep ball to Wolitarsky, you saw it again, the game against Edmonton as well, where he didn't have his best game, but hey, you can connect on these deep balls. And the TD pass to Rashid Bailey, where he's running in the pocket, shakes a defender and fires a bullet to Bailey, who catches it in his arms. I mean, this guy, I don't know if we're appreciating how good this guy is, even when he's not having his best game. He just needs to make one play, and he did that a couple times yesterday.
when you're 26-1 as a quarterback record, in meaningful games all time as a Winnipeg Blue Bomber, credit where credit is due. You're right. Zach Collaros just needs one play. All the great quarterbacks just need one play to absolutely deplete and deflate an opponent. We saw it here in Winnipeg with Kahari Jones and Milt Stiegel. You could never count them out because you could hit Milt on an 85-yarder and win a football game like we saw, a few times during their careers here. Doug Flutie, Damon Allen, Matt Dunnigan, Ron Lancaster, Tom Burgess. All of those quarterbacks were capable of beating teams with their arm. And Zach Collaros is doing it with his legs and his arm. It's really, really something to behold. It leads into, kind of my overarching morale of this Winnipeg Blue Bombers team right now. Fans of Canadian football and fans here in Southern Manitoba and Winnipeg in particular, Mike, need to appreciate what they have right now. This is not just another good football team, another team that is in first place midway through the season. This is a team that is showing to be in the conversation amongst the all-time great teams in Canadian football. You can even argue pro football in North America. Fans need to understand and recognize that and enjoy it while it lasts. Those diehards here in Winnipeg and Blue Bomber fans across the country know what it's like to go through 3 decades, 2 generations of no championships and heartbreak in the playoffs and in Grey Cup games in losses. Enjoy it right now. This team is so very good and entertaining to watch, whether it's a 25-point combined score game or an absolute toe-to-toe shootout between offenses. It's really something to behold.
Well, Darrin, you said it all. Thank you so much for coming on. We are looking forward to the rematch next Thursday at IG Field. Don't bring air horns. Bring something else.
Bring your
that makes
cowbell.
Noise. It has to be, powered by human. It can't be something that's like electronic, like an air horn. I don't even know how those work, but we don't want those. Make noise, but respect the other people around you. Well, Darrin, thank you again for coming on. Check out Bonfire Sports wherever you get the podcast. Search for it on YouTube. And Darrin Bauming on Twitter has got all the Bomber updates. Thank you again, Darrin. Love talking CFL with you. It was so much fun. Appreciate it.
Good to be with you, Remo. We know Blue Bomber fans don't need air horns. They're the loudest fans in the CFL. They do fine just with their voices in their hands. So have a great weekend, man.
Yeah, thanks. You too. We'll catch up later. All right. See you, Darrin. Thanks a lot. Great talking with Darrin. And we're going to be joined by Murat. But just to finish off some of this Bomber talk, I want to play this clip from Brady Oliveira talking about gaining confidence over the last couple of games.
Yeah, I think it's great. Obviously early in the season I stuck to it. It was tough at times and it was hard at times, but I really, kept my head down, and the guys in the locker room really believed in me. The coaches believed in me, and I knew it was going to come, and I knew it was going to come, and it was just tough in the beginning, but it feels good now. I got that confidence. I'm running a lot smoother, hitting it a lot harder, playing my type of football, which is, north and south, physical run.
And Brady's definitely playing his type of football. We're going to be joined by Murat Atesh of The Athletic in a second. But before that, I'm going to send it over to Hustler for a couple announcements.
Winnipeg Sports Talk is brought to you in part by our friends at Vita Health Fresh Market, featuring great prices on Winnipeg's best selection of natural and organic supplements, beauty products, and groceries. With great, delicious lunch options at their grab-and-go deli as well, like Vita Market salads, soups, sandwiches, and more. Be sure to visit their new fully shoppable website as well at myvita.ca to buy online, schedule a delivery, or in-store pickup. Vita Health Fresh Market with 7 Winnipeg locations, including the newest store in Linden Ridge, and online at myvita.ca. F Apparel is Winnipeg's leader in custom suits for men. Winnipeg owned with a full line of custom clothing for any occasions, including suits starting at $400, dress shirts, winter jackets, chinos, golf pants, untucked dress shirts, shoes, ties, accessories, and more. And they're the top choice in Winnipeg for wedding and grad suits. Visit them in person at 190 Smith Street downtown, or check them out online or book an appointment at Apparel. That's EPHapparel.com. Wallace & Wallace is Winnipeg's leader in fencing and overhead doors for over 75 years. You've seen their fences and trucks all over the city. They've been serving residential and commercial customers since 1946. If you need a new fence or you need the overhead door done up, Wallace & Wallace has you covered. They're also the leader in boathouse doors. So if you have need for your little piece of paradise at the cottage, they can help you as well. Give them a call at 204-452-2700. Visit them at their showroom on Lawson Road off Kenniston Boulevard, or check them out online at wallacedoors.com or wallacefences.com. As well as our friends at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge have an incredible summer. If you're thinking about a once-in-a-lifetime trip, fly-in fishing where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg, Aikens Lake is the place for you. Check them out online on all the social media channels at Aikens Lake and find out more about booking for next year right now at aikenslake.com.
And there he is. Thank you, Hustler, for all that. And if you are still here, again, thumbs up. So we had 200 on the show yesterday. Pretty incredible. Hit it down below. Subscribe button as well. Closing in on 8K subs. I do have one more clip from Brady I want to play. We've talked so much about the schedule, only kind of recently. You know, we weren't really talking about it during, and I don't think the team was, but he was asked after the game, the team's mindset heading into this stretch here. And I really love this answer. So here's another one from Brady Oliveira.
You said it. I mean, the stretch that we got right now, no doubt it's tough and it's a hard one, but it's a grind. And, you know, everyone in this locker room loves the grind, and we embrace the grind, and we love the process, and it's getting us better. I think you see every single week we're building and building and building, and we're getting better, even though we have this long stretch, but it's a grind, and we love the grind. O'Shea preaches it to us, and we're just falling in love with it.
We love the grind. We love the stretch. Everything's perfect. I love the mindset from the Bombers. When it comes to facing adversity, they're ready for it. They can hit anything. It doesn't really matter the conditions. It doesn't matter if there's air horns, heat, short schedule. They can do it all. Enough about the Bombers. We're going to have to move on to some hockey news. We did have a big signing yesterday, Jonathan Huberdeau, but I am super pumped up to welcome into the show Murat Atesh of The Athletic. And I will just bring you in. Murat, how's it going? Thanks for popping in.
Remis, good to see you. The truth is, and I won't sidestep this, sorry to throw you for a curve. It's a tough week. One of my best friends in the world passed away. Nobody helped Murat's mom out with more things around the house, more errands, more fixes, more anything else than Nick Fraze. And so it's a sad time. And I only say that. It's not the point of your show. It's not the purpose. It's not why you're having me on. But whenever I have an opportunity to share anything that says, like, hug your dear ones extra tightly this weekend, tonight, whatever you're doing this summer, I mean, take the time. I want to share that. So that's the purpose of why I say it. So Remis, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here and to talk Jets with you, man. I'm really excited for it.
Right, I've got to say my extreme condolences. I'm sorry that you sent me the text yesterday, and I saw your tweet as well. So yes, hug your loved ones extra tight tonight, and I can see the emotion you have. We'll move on to the hockey as much as it seems insignificant to other things, but we did have a big signing yesterday. Jonathan Huberdeau with Calgary. What was your initial reaction when you saw that signing? 10 years, 84 mil.
You know what? My hot take on that one is that we really have to be concerned about how it ages. You know, I think that there's going to be some folks that think that, oh my goodness, to get Huberdeau and Uyghur for Matthew Tkachuk from Florida, what a coup on Calgary's part. What a great job that they did, and their ability to sign Huberdeau long-term immediately, I mean, I think is going to be celebrated in some circles. I'm concerned about how that ages. I'm the sort of person who thinks that, oh my goodness, his point totals. His offensive ability is incredible. It's phenomenal, but he gives a lot back in the other direction. And I don't know how this player is going to age in terms of his offensive impact versus his defensive impact. This might be a guy that puts up a lot of points for several years, but doesn't, he might be a top 5 point getter, but not necessarily be a top 5 value in the NHL. So I know Calgary had to do something there, or at least they probably felt like they did. They were going for Matthew Tkachuk at 24 years old and thinking that they would have him through the heart of his career. And now they're still trying to win and they're still trying to be competitive. So I understand their perspective on it. I think it's going to be the kind of deal that ages really well for a few years and then at some point falls off as well. And we've seen what happens in Winnipeg with, for example, Blake Wheeler at $8.25 million. As you get, past those mid-30s or into those mid-30s, some of that offensive production and that two-way play tends to fall off. And Wheeler is a much better two-way player than Jonathan Huberdeau was. We're already seeing his impact start to decline. So that back half of that deal, I'd be tremendously concerned about, even though Calgary might get to do some winning in the front half that makes them go, okay, well, it's worth that pain.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you that I think the back half there might be some small pain, but I think for them, they needed a win. You lost Johnny Gaudreau, and if you're going to give this money to Gaudreau anyways, why not give it to the other guy with EA, whose last name ends with EAU? He's second in the league last year in points over the last couple of years. Been one of the top point getters in the league. When you traded Tkachuk, I think maybe they win the trade for sure if they sign Uyghur. And we can worry about 8 years, 5 years down the road. Then now we want to win. We want to see the Battle of Alberta. And I do agree for Huberdeau, big for him. I mean, if someone says, hey, I'll give you $84 million, I think you say yes. I mean, we saw what happened to John Klingberg.
Please.
You don't want to end up like him or Nazem Kadri being the top UFA and nowhere to go. So, we'll see if he can move over the fancy cars to Calgary. Moving on to the Jets. You wrote about them quite a bit in your mailbag. I know you're getting a lot of questions. I need to ask you, I said this yesterday to Brandon. Is this it for them, Murat? This can't be it, is it?
They have that little bit of cap space to work with, right? I mean, even with Mason Appleton coming down the pipe, and that's going to be added to the cap hit, that's not going to be so big that Winnipeg's run right out of room. I think it was Ken Wiebe who reported that Winnipeg is one of the teams that offered Danton Heinen a contract. Didn't work out on that front. So it's that type of, middle six ideally, but, third line and closer to the end of the roster player that I could still see Winnipeg be in on to some degree. But I don't think that there's anything in terms of a sea change on the way, that's for sure. It's difficult to look at that cap space and know exactly what Winnipeg's going to do with it. On one hand, they might be in on other players of that ilk. I honestly, over the last couple of days, I haven't kept track of signings, but if Evan Rodriguez is available, the Sonny Milano type of player, this sort of thing, these might be the aisles that Winnipeg could be shopping in, given that they've already shown some interest in a player like Danton Heinen, as Ken Wiebe reported. So that's what I envision. So maybe some of it gets used up there. But also, this is the first year in a few that Winnipeg's not going to be an LTIR to start the year. So after trading Brian Little's contract to Arizona, Winnipeg has real live cap space now. And every little bit that they're under the cap maximum, well, for the first time in several years, they get to build up throughout the season. And maybe going into the year with a little bit of a cushion means something. Maybe if Winnipeg is able to have every if and but just go their way such that they're in a playoff race, maybe there's room to add at the trade deadline. And then there's also the possibility that they're just content to, hey, this is not necessarily the championship year. So maybe we don't have to spend 81.25 or 82.5, pardon me, numbers. Maybe we don't have to spend to the cap maximum just to do so at this stage. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do, because I think all of those are valid and viable options.
It's crazy to me how productive NHL players like Kadri, who's superstar type season last year, and then you have guys who are good NHL players like above replacement, Rodriguez, Sprong, Milano. I mean, you could contribute in a middle six. These guys don't have contracts. I don't know what these guys are waiting for, because I don't think the offers are getting higher than they are now. The Jets, Ken Wiebe reported what they were in on Yarncroke, they were in on Heinen, so they seem to have. They know they need to get a middle six guy or bottom six. I don't think they're done. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe something does happen later. I know you follow the Oilers closely, but it seems like that's a team, Murat, who's going to have to make a move after signing Kyler Yamamoto, and they're over the cap. What do you see next from Edmonton? I know
that there were Jesse Puljujarvi rumors for a little while there that perhaps that's a player that they need to move on from. He's a player that I think frustrates a lot of Oiler fans and maybe even a few people within the Oilers organization, not because he's not trying, not because he's not a wonderful person or any of those sorts of things, but he gets himself into positions to score reasonably often and then burns those chances. He just doesn't have the finish to go along with his play driving ability. And to me, depending on the context, that's a really valuable player, a guy who can get in on the forecheck, who can help you play in the right end of the ice. But I think that he's been put or typecast into a scoring role based on the fact he was drafted so high. And he burns enough chances that I think that maybe there's a souring on his ability to play in the top six as a result, even with his value in other ways. The other one I wonder, I think I was reading Low Tide the other day, and he was talking about the possibility of a Warren Fogle trade as another possible cap safety release valve. And I'm not sure exactly what Edmonton does in this way, but I think that having, I guess, dead money on the cap in some situations and some of the signings they've made and the trades they've made over the years, they've put themselves in an awkward position. It's not Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl's money that is really hampering that team so much as it's all this wasted money in the middle six and some of the defensemen they've added and things like that. So I think that, the question is maybe they could be a place where, a team like Winnipeg could get a valuable middle six player for pennies on the dollar because there's cap space in Winnipeg and not in Edmonton. At the same time, as down, I think, on Winnipeg as many of us are right now because of how little they've done, I think that we can at least credit them for not having dead money on the cap like some other teams do. They need more from their star players, and they definitely need to add in that middle six, I think. But at the very least, they haven't squandered all of that cap space the way that maybe some other teams have.
Yeah, that Leon, speaking of contracts, that Leon Draisaitl contract, I think it's just over $8 million a year, looking like an absolute steal. And McDavid, and I think you said it very well, that those guys aren't holding the Oilers back. It's the bad contracts. Who was it? Cassian before, Tyson Barrie. There's some other ones in there. You just did 2 mailbags, right, at The Athletic. Check them out if you haven't. What's been the overall theme from a lot of the emails? Do you see you got like 200 emails for about the Jets in July?
Yeah. Well, it was like 245, which probably includes like 3 or 4 of my comments to people, would probably include a few people being like, oh yeah, I wanted to ask that too, like in the comment thread, but 245 comments in the mailbag call, which is pretty cool. I mean, the idea that the passion to sort of figure out what the plan is in Winnipeg is so front of mind for so many people. I mean, I love that. That means a lot of great questions. There was one really cool one about Winnipeg's draft and development record. And we know that the Jets are known as a draft and development team. That's their identity. It has been since they picked Mark Scheifele in 2011. And they've done so well. And the question is, well, are they still doing that well? Because they're not graduating nearly as many players as they used to do. And I took a little bit of time to dig into that one, actually. And there are, we all know, right? The value of a number 1 overall pick and a number 2 overall pick is a lot more than later in the first round. The curve is very steep in terms of how value declines from that first pick all the way through the draft. And so there's different analytical models that look at how much value you should get based on where you're picking, whether it's 10th, 25th, 50, whatever, all the way through. And so I was able to go through and use Stephen Birch's formula. He wrote this at Sportsnet in 2015, I want to say, and I just want to throw some credit to him, to estimate how many players Winnipeg should be getting out of the draft, because we know they've traded so many picks away, and that's a problem. That's been We've seen that in terms of how few players have graduated of late. Ever since 2017, when they traded the pick that became Nick Suzuki for the one that became Christian Vesalainen as part of the Vegas expansion concerns. 2018, you trade a first-round pick for Paul Stastny. 2019, you trade a first-round pick for Kevin Hayes. You get it back for Jacob Trouba, but you're still down a first-round pick in net as far as the way I look at it. And then 2020, you have 2019, Ville Heinola, 2020, Cole Perfetti, 2021, Chaz Lucius, but they're not making the full complement of draft picks. They've drafted so infrequently from all of the trades that they've made. That's a problem. But when you look at the actual picks that they've had, they're still underperforming in terms of how many NHL players they've graduated. And so if you split their record from 2011 to 2015, under their former, organizational structure in terms of their director of amateur scouting, and 2016 to present, there's still time for the recent group to catch up if Heinola and Perfetti all hit, and if they get a few diamonds in the rough and Mikkel Burden becomes an NHL player. There's still a little bit of catch up for them to play. But it may be, and this is worth reading the deep dive on it in the mailbag, but it may be that Winnipeg's reputation was really honed from 2011 to 2015, and they're riding on that a little bit, still doing reasonably well, but close to average, almost average, and not necessarily that elite group that we saw when they were pulling Kyle Connor at 17, 18, or 19, whatever that was, Jack Roslovic, and the times early on when they were drafting multiple NHL players every single draft. That was an incredible run, and I'm not sure we're seeing that kind of quality now, whether that's drafting or development.
And I think I've seen them this last year, that kind of catch up to them, where you don't have those forwards on entry-level contracts pushing into the lineup. And I think that's part of the reason why they haven't had a lot of success. You need guys, making $800K, whatever the minimum is on ELCs contributing, so you can have those top dogs getting paid. And we're seeing a lot of teams go more of these stars and scrubs. And I do kind of agree with you where, after the Line A draft, 2017, Vesalainen, Samberg, Kovacevic, you haven't really had anyone make significant NHL impact. Now, that doesn't mean they can't do it in the future. We just haven't seen that right now. Like 2018, Gustafson, Smith, Chisholm. 2019, Heinola has played, in 2020, Perfetti, and obviously too early for the 2021-22. But we just haven't seen that. Maybe they will in the future, but I think that's part of the reason why the team is where they are, kind of on the playoff bubble. Moving on.
And if you go back to like the good old days, 2018, when Winnipeg was a Western Conference finalist and forward, I mean, one of the reasons they were able to add Paul Stastny to a stacked team that already had, Brian Little was playing and still productive at that point, already had Blake Wheeler, Mark Scheifele just playing in elite seasons. All of that was because you had guys like Kyle Connor, Patrick Laine, Nikolai Ehlers, Josh Morrissey, Jacob Trouba, Connor Hellebuck, not necessarily all on their ELCs. Some of them were their second contracts, but those were value. I mean, there were like $1 or $2 million per player in a lot of those cases. And I think that a little bit of that plot was lost over these last few years. I wouldn't really criticize the Jets too heavily this most recent year defensively. With, they brought Schmidt and Dillon in, so I could understand younger players not getting as much of a try. But when you had Ville Heinola and Dylan Samberg maybe giving up minutes, Ville Heinola especially, I should say, because Samberg has just turned pro, but giving up minutes to the pending unrestricted free agents of the world, like Lucas Spiza and Nathan Beaulieu and Tucker Poolman and et cetera down the line, Anthony Bitetto. Those are situations where you maybe took away an organization's ability to feed those cheaper contracts into the system. And certainly up front as well. I mean, it's a shame that David Gustafson didn't stay healthy this past season. Even Cole Perfetti as well. Health has been an impactor there. But Winnipeg used to be really, really good at, and maybe they were almost youth heavy in 2018 when they went so deep. And maybe that's a lesson to learn as well. But I think that the pendulum just swung a little bit too far in the other direction. And hopefully under the new regime and the, with some of those roster spots, especially up front that look like they should be open right now, maybe you would ideally see a better integration of those young players.
And that's one of the stories for me heading into the season. How are they going to find playing time for all these young players? Some of them who are waivers exempt, like a Johnny Kovacevic, who did play well, when he was in the lineup. You have that last spot for Stanley, Heinola, Sandberg. How is it going to shake out? And that's something we're going to wait and see. And meanwhile, you have these open spots, maybe not open, but spots in the bottom six, which really didn't contribute as much offensively last season. You did have something in your mailbag that I found very interesting. I think some of us may be surprised that Marty Johnson was hired as assistant coach for the Winnipeg Jets, whatever it was, 2 weeks ago. It seems like he's got quite understanding of, the importance of hockey analytics. What did you make of the Johnston hiring?
Yeah, you know what? It's even though he's been in the organization, I can't say that I knew a ton about him. And so looking up all of the various interviews that he's done, and I included a YouTube video from, I'm blanking on the source, but certainly the source is listed, in the mailbag, where Marty Johnson is talking about his views on analytics. And he admits, once upon a time, I really didn't want to get into this stuff. And it really didn't, make sense to me. But the more that he started to look at shot quality, at different types of scoring chances, the more that he thought that, well, this is important stuff and it could influence how he coaches and how he teaches players to practice. And so he got into how he classifies different scoring chances, like obviously deflections being, more difficult to stop than straight shots. But he gets into specifics, like how much does the goaltender have to move his feet to track a puck? What are the different circumstances in terms of pre-shot passing that goes into scoring chances that can make them more difficult? And then from his perspective, how can he teach his defensemen, or how can he teach goaltenders to prepare for these different types of chances, to limit the overall amount of danger, and as well as to handle them when they happen? So in that video, he's talking, and I think it's 2020 or so, and he's already saying, well, you know what, based on this most recent season of data that I've tracked, and with the Moose, I have some ideas for how I want to improve that. And I just like that line of thinking. Analytics aren't the be all and end all of everything in sport, that's for sure. You have to be able to action them in terms of, okay, well, if that scoring chance is dangerous, is there a way we can stop it? Or, is that just Connor McDavid on a breakaway type of situation? And, he's going to get a few of those. How can we game plan around these things? How can we make life easier for goaltenders? Or on the other end of the ice, how can we find different routes to get the puck into the middle in dangerous ways that are going to make life harder for goaltenders? And for the last several years, I think, Paul Maurice was analytics literate, to be sure. I've spoken with him about analytics a few times. Matt Prefontaine, video coach and analytics, is under his behest as well. I think he and a couple of others, I don't want to call them an island because that wouldn't be fair, but they were maybe, of a few people who had sort of an interest in this topic. And to add Marty Johnston to that, who has, obviously his wealth of own hockey knowledge separate from the data, but now he's going into that. I think it's good to flesh things out where possible. And Winnipeg seems to like to, get bang for the buck, or they're not spending an inordinate amount on their front office. But so then when people can sort of cross-train like that, or have multiple different areas of expertise, I think that helps them from an organizational perspective.
I will say this, I mentioned the number of defensemen they have being a storyline, but of course, the number one storyline that we're going to be watching is, can this coaching staff get some, different results on the defensive side from the Winnipeg Jets? Because, the coaching change, they didn't get the coach bump last year, and, maybe something will happen here as we head into the next season. Murat, great having you on. Love hearing your insight. I want to know. It's August. We haven't seen a lot of moves. I got on my notes here, Jets news, and the number one item I have, I'll show up is their wedding pictures. And a couple of guys got married. Nate Schmidt, Mason Appleton, and Neil Pionk all got married. We'll go through the pictures later. Thank you, Winnipeg Jets, for tweeting out those. But what do you have on deck here as we're hitting into August?
I had a couple of weddings last month or what have you. I had the idea that I'd be taking some time off in August, to tell you the truth. I know we got a Mason Appleton arbitration hearing. Yes. We might have other news and all that sort of stuff. But I'm looking forward to unwinding. I signed up for soccer to remind myself how slow I've gotten in my mid-30s. And I'm just going to try to enjoy the outside time and enjoy quality time with the dear ones and with close friends. So I hope everybody's getting a chance to do that as well. I see Ken Wiebe on deck, speaking of gems as well. So a lot of love to him and to all you guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, Murat, thank you so much for coming on today. Love hearing your insight on Jets, on hockey. Hope to do it again next week. We'll be in touch over the weekend. Thank you so much.
Right on. Thanks, Remo.
There he is. Murat Atesh of The Athletic. Give him a follow. WPG Murat on Twitter. And if you're not subscribing to The Athletic, they have some great deals. So check those out. We're going to bring on Ken. He's in the middle of the MB Golf Tour, the baseball tour. A lot to get to with Ken. But before that, Hustler's going to hop in with a special message.
Winnipeg Sports Talk is brought to you in part by Princess Auto, where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Visit them at one of 2 Winnipeg locations, Panet Road or Portage Avenue West, or shop online at princessauto.com 24/7, 365. And don't forget to attend the Princess Auto tailgate party 2 hours before each Blue Bomber home game outside of IG Field. Culligan Water, celebrating over 65 years in business, as a family-owned go-to people for all things water in Winnipeg and southern Manitoba. Whether it's water softeners, filters, bottled water coolers, drinking water systems, or citywide water delivery services, Culligan has you covered, as well as commercial and industrial water products and solutions. Whether for the home, the cottage, or the office, Culligan's there for you. Pop by and see him at 1200 Sargent Avenue, 694-5180, or online at drinkculligan.com. Royal Sports has been the leaders in all things sports for 40 years here in Winnipeg and southern Manitoba, with the best selection of fan licensed merchandise from all the big leagues: NHL, NBA, Major League Baseball, NFL, CFL, and international soccer. And of course, the hockey superstore, but much more than just hockey: soccer, softball, baseball, tennis, a huge bike selection, and a lot of people taking up disc golf. They've got a huge selection of that as well. Whether you're getting ready for the upcoming season or trying to get the most out of summer, Royal Sports is the place to go. 750 Pembina Highway. And make sure to check them out on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina and give them a follow for the latest merchandise drops and sales. And of course, our friends at Breezy Bend Golf and Country Club, looking very forward to the Canadian Women's Mid-Amateur and Senior Championship coming up later on this summer. But if you are thinking about an incredible championship course and facility for you and your family for your golfing future, give our friend Corey Johnson a call at Breezy Bend about getting on the waiting list for next season, or find out more on everything Breezy has to offer at breezybend.ca.
All right, everyone, wake up. Thanks for tuning in. I am here, Michael Remis, filling in for Hustler, who just did a marvelous job of those ad reads. And we are going live to Minneapolis, taking a break from the MB Golf Tour. Ken Wiebe, welcome to the program. Oh, your mini water bottle. Nice, Ken. How's it going?
Remo, great to be with you. Downtown Minneapolis, so lots of Jays blue around town so far. Fired up to be at Target Field tonight for the first time in several years. Been trying to figure out the last time here, but definitely have been. It's one of the best parks. I know Mike McIntyre got the head start on me last night. Was in town for the big Alec Manoah victory and the Vladdy Guerrero rocket launcher that left the park in about 1.447 seconds and was hit at 115 miles an hour off the reliever there to sort of widen the gap. But one of the best parks in Major League Baseball. And folks, it sounded like some folks who crossed the land border said things were running pretty smoothly, but Twins had one of their biggest crowds of the year last night. It sounded like lots of Canadians from not only Manitoba, but I believe a little bit from Ontario. You get some Saskatchewan folks in there as well, crossing the border to see the Jays. And yeah, it's been, as you mentioned with Murat, it's been a little bit of a quiet time on the hockey roadmap. So happy to be out and checking out a little Blue Jays baseball action. Excited for the Jose Barrios return here tonight as well.
Oh yeah, he did pitch for the Twins previously. Any concession items you got your eye on? You're gonna get the walleye on a stick, pork chop on a stick. Gonna hit those.
Well, Remo, I'm going to be honest. I'm more of a red cow burger guy to myself.
I've been there.
I'm going to probably, the sliders are pretty good. I may just wait for the full burger at some point on the weekend here in town. But we had a great breakfast in Minneapolis upon arrival. I'm feeling pretty fresh considering I had a 4 a.m. wake up call to hop on the old Delta flight today. But
he flew.
Yeah, well, we're heading to Vegas from here, Remo. So it's we're gonna be it's the Cross North America tour right now. We've had a lot of golf happening, as you know. Murat was talking about outdoor activities. We had a great time out at Bird River at my friend's cabin earlier this week. Got on the old tube. Had a great, glorious sunset at Bird River and had some fun activities. And great to be enjoying the great outdoors. I know. Even though it's been quiet now, we know it's, I think, around 7 weeks until training camp. So this is usually a little bit of a quiet zone in the NHL, but we do still anticipate some moves to be coming, whether that be via trade or still some, maybe some, let's say, not necessarily bargain, but some value free agents available out there as well still.
I was going to ask, and I've been asking everyone this. You were the one who reported that the Jets were in on Darrin Bauming, who signed with Pittsburgh for the $1 million contract. So I've said, is this it for the Jets? But you are of the belief that something on the horizon here.
They have a little bit of cap room. Obviously, we know that some will get eaten up by Mason Appleton, but that's going to be a deal between $1 million and $2 million, somewhere maybe even 1.25, 1.75, whatever the number will be. But they'll still be somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think, close to $6-ish million available. So whether the Jets, as Murat wrote about in the mailbag as well, whether they're looking to have a little bit some of that weaponized for down the road, that's certainly a possibility. But it's also possible the Jets are still waiting to make a trade. We know that there are some bigger ticket items that are not available without moving a contract or without sort of reducing the glut on left-handed defense. So we know it's great for the Jets to have depth, but they're not going to be rolling with 9 D-men starting the year. And yes, it is true the Jets could technically send down Ville Heinola or Dylan Samberg, but Remo, one of the reasons Rick Bowness was brought on board was because of his ability to integrate young defensemen into the lineup. So it's tough to integrate them into the lineup from the Manitoba Moose, obviously. So I still do think, and obviously too, Kevin Cheveldayoff talked openly about wanting to upgrade the forward group. So right now the forward group is minus Andrew Kopp and minus Paul Stastny. So even with Cole Perfetti being counted on being healthy first and foremost, to be able to be a contributor. And yes, Morgan Barron had a nice contribution at the end of the year. They're still going to need to upgrade that middle 6 group. So whether that's an Evan Rodriguez out there, we'll see what happens. But I would still think that there's going to be a trade to come, whether that's from the back end or it would make the most sense. But quickly, just to circle back to Darrin Bauming, the one thing that I learned and kind of sniffing around when that had happened, some folks are just saying, "Oh well, the Jets want it out there. They're in on these guys." it didn't come from the Jets. This is outside sources, and the player, obviously. It's easy for a player to say it's not about the money, but in Darrin Bauming's case, it was not about the money. Here's a guy who had is a career year basically last year with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and some folks on social media can scoff all they want and say, "Oh well, the Penguins aren't a Stanley Cup contender anymore." Well, I'm here to tell you that any team that has Evgeny Malkin and Sidney Crosby will still be a contender. They were rolling with the 3rd-string goalie in the playoffs last year, and spicy pork jokes no more. It's a little bit different rolling with Louis Domingue. Louis Domingue did his best to keep his team in the series, but when they have their number 1 goaltender, the Penguins are a tough out. So, Darrin Bauming is staying in a place where he's comfortable. He had a great year. He knows exactly how he will be utilized under Mike Sullivan. But this wasn't a situation where he was turning his nose at Winnipeg and not considering the opportunity. He strongly considered the opportunity. He felt it could have been a good fit for him. The Winnipeg was one of several teams I mentioned that made a more lucrative offer than Pittsburgh. But for Heinen, he just is staying in a comfortable situation. He's we talk about the players banking on themselves on shorter-term deals because the cap is probably going up. It's only going up incrementally by about $1 million. But I mean, a lot of the Denheinen had to take a pay cut to stick around, but he did that not because he was scared of what was happening in Winnipeg. It was because he was banking on himself to have another maybe 16 to 20 goal a year, and then maybe be able to cash in on something a little bit more longer term next summer. So, and again, too, I mean, we talked about this with Kelly Yarncroke. I mean, the Jets made a more lucrative offer from what I can what I've been able to uncover, but they weren't able to lock him down. So I mean, we're not here to hand out participation medals, but I mean, the reason why these guys are in on these guys is because they know that that's the type of player they're looking for, guys that are pretty conscientious defensively, but can also contribute some offense. So obviously Heinen is a little bit more of a better skater, and his guys contributed on the penalty kill. But I mean, if the fact that Jets are kicking the tires on those kinds of players and making more lucrative offers, and in Yarncroke's case, a multi-year deal, that tells you that they know they're looking to upgrade that position, and they're not going to just suddenly say, oh, well, we didn't get those two guys, but we're just going to roll with what we have.
Yeah, I agree. I think something's going on. We'll have to wait and see what the moves are. It's crazy to me that Nazem Kadri, who's like the top UFA coming in, doesn't have a contract, and these guys who are contributors, there will be signings, and we'll have to wait and see. We'll be here keeping track of them. We did have some Jets prospect news this week. Rutger McGroarty didn't make Team USA at the World. Seems like they're only going to have Brad Lambert on Finland. Anything to make of that? I wasn't really concerned. I mean, Kyle Connor didn't make the juniors. It's still pretty young, but I just thought it was a note I would have to throw out this week.
Yeah, Remo, I think the big thing to remember, especially with the timing of the tournament just being a little bit of disruption, right? Because it would normally have been played in December and January, right? So for McGroarty, this is not a knock on him. I mean, it's a 19-year-old tournament primarily, right? And yes, some NHL guys are not going to the camp. I think you're going to see McGroarty probably play for Team USA in December, when it would normally be his kind of peak year to be there. I think it's just a matter of, I think they're going with a little bit more of a veteran group right now. From all accounts, I mean, he did have a pretty decent camp from what I've heard. He will have a half season as a freshman under his belt at the University of Michigan by the time the 2023 event rolls around. And I would expect to see him at that tournament. Lambert, we figured, would be there. Obviously, he was one of the more dominant players before the tournament was shut down last year due to COVID again. And it'll be a great opportunity for him. And yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate for Chaz Lucius, who had, he was in more of that middle six role with Team USA at the event in December as well in Alberta. So with his injury, he wouldn't be ready. I mean, normally the Jets would probably have a couple other guys out there, but Torgerson is a guy who kind of graduated and did a nice job there as well. So he's going to be a fun prospect to watch with the Moose. And I wouldn't make too much of the summer tournament, Remo. I mean, it's a great opportunity still for some of these guys, but it's not the same as the December tournament because you have guys that are just starting to ramp up their training now. So, and even though some folks would say, oh, they'd love to see Perfetti. Well, Perfetti's already played. Would Cole be effective and be a great player and turn in a leadership role for Canada? Of course he would, but that's not going to disrupt his ability to get ready for training camp and be ready to be a contributor come October, which is what really matters to both Perfetti himself and to the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, they need Perfetti to be a contributor. Would it help him to be playing at a high level? Sure. But what I would also say, you also run the risk, especially coming back from injury, of a future injury. Look at what happened to Kirby Dach. I mean, Kirby Dach is a great example. Here's a guy who was one of the best players for the Chicago Blackhawks in the bubble playoff year in Edmonton. When I was there watching him play against the Edmonton Oilers, I would say that after Jonathan Toews, Kirby Dach was, I would say he was among, I think in the series that I watched, he at times played better than Patrick Kane did in that series. Now, that's not a knock against Kane. Kane was fine in that series, but Dach was playing at a really high level. And then he got hurt in a pre-tournament game for Team Canada, and he hasn't been the same player since. So I know some folks are a little bit up in arms and would love to see Perfetti play, but I mean, coming back from the nature of the shoulder injury, what we suspect, what happened after that hit from Jamie Alexiak, I mean, Perfetti needs to get ready for the Jets camp. That's what matters. And for Lucius, I expect him to be an impact player at the Young Stars event. And then, I mean, we're going to see, is he going to be playing for I expect him to play for the Manitoba Moose. Yes, we know the option will be available to send him to the Portland Winterhawks, who have his WHL rights. But I think he's going to be with the Moose. They're going to want him to, get his pro career started. And there too, I mean, people need to remember, I mean, if things aren't going as smoothly as one would suspect, no one's to say that that's going to happen. But you can always send the player back to junior. I mean, before the January 10th deadline or whatever the date is going to be this year. But I'm expecting Lucius to be at that level, and I'm expecting Brad Lambert on the flip side to be playing for the Saskatoon Blades, Seattle Thunderbirds, traded for his rights. So I would expect him to be in the Western League to start the year, but it'll be great for him to kind of get a springboard. For Lambert is important because he didn't have a ton of playing time over in Liga, and he didn't have a ton of production. So a tournament like that for him is important to get the confidence and the puck touches and all those other things that are important to get your pro career started. Whereas Perfetti, the last time we saw Perfetti, he was on a pretty important line with Pierre-Luc Dubois and Kyle Connor. So his transition is a little bit more, ahead of the game or ahead of the curve when it comes to Lambert, even though Perfetti missed all that time at the end of the year due to the injury.
Funny that you mention it, Ken. I completely forgot that, we have the World Juniors coming up in Edmonton coming up, later this month, but also the regular World Juniors in Halifax in December. Very compressed schedule here of World Juniors. And you're almost kind of like, why are we doing this thing in August? I know you want to give these guys a chance here, but they're going ahead with it, and we will have some August hockey. I don't know if you've been paying attention to the Gretzky Halinka, as they call it now, but that's going on too. We've kind of covered the Jets here. A quick reaction here. I mean, the Huberdeau contract, that was the big news yesterday, him getting the 10-year, $84 million deal. How did you see this one for the Flames?
Yeah, Remo, I mean, obviously what we were talking about when the trade was made, I mean, obviously people were talking about the return that Brad Treliving got, and one of the caveats was the Jets were the Flames were going to need to sign at least one of those two players to an extension in order for it to kind of be more of a win for Brad Treliving. I mean, to me, it comes down to a very simple platform. I mean, the Flames were kind of under duress, Remo. 2/3 of the best line in hockey were gone. One by his own choice, one saying, I'm out of here at the end of next year, so politely, you better do something with me if you don't want to lose me for nothing. So what Brad Treliving was able to do is turn that into some key pieces, both in terms of present-day capital and future capital. They've got a sort of a contingency plan for Michael Backlund with the prospect, the centerman prospect. They got a first-round draft pick, and now you got two players going to – one of them now is only on an expiring contract, in Mackenzie Weegar, who the Flames are still negotiating with and will probably ramp up those efforts. But now you've locked down a Hart Trophy candidate. I mean, I totally understand Remo. I mean, it's a hot take society that we live in, and the contract's not going to age well. Well, those same people that are saying the contract's not going to age well, and they may be right eventually, but in order to lure or keep one of those players of that quality of Jonathan Huberdeau, a 100+ point player, a guy who was in the discussion for the Hart Trophy, if you want to have him in your market for 8 years for the max, you're going to have to pay a premium. And Brad Treliving paid a premium, but he also locked down one of the top wingers in the National Hockey League. So I commend him and applaud him for his ability to do so. I mean, at the end of that deal, I mean, could be some lean years. Sure, that's possible. But I mean, the Flames have gone from people have forgotten this because of how poorly the Battle of Alberta went for them this year. I mean, they were a dominant regular season team at times. They have one of the best goalies in the NHL in Jacob Markstrom, and Elias Lindholm is still an excellent two-way player. And now he's got Huberdeau locked up beside him for multiple seasons. I mean, the Flames are still a legit contender in the Pacific Division. And yes, we saw the Oilers take an important step, but I think the Flames, they're not just a playoff team. They're still going to probably be one of the best teams in the Pacific Division. And if you look at their defense score, if they continue to play the way that they did, and now you add Weegar, yes, I mean, okay, so he ended up on the wrong side of the highlight reel in the Tampa series to Kucherov. Well, big deal. That happens to a lot of players. Their defense score is excellent. And now Huberdeau, for all the people saying, where's the offense going to come from? Huberdeau's an elite level offensive player and a guy who has something to prove. I mean, he hasn't been able to enjoy any of the sustained playoff success during his career so far. He's sort of in the prime years of his career. I mean, yes, he's approaching 30, but I mean, for all the people saying that last year's an outlier, I mean, I don't think those people are paying attention. Jonathan Huberdeau has been a high-level player for a long time. Yes, does he benefit from playing with Barkov at times? Sure. They weren't even on the same line all year last year. And now he's going to have an excellent two-way player in Elias Lindholm, a guy that could score, 40 plus on his line. And the other part about the Flames that people are forgetting too, Andrew Mangiapane signing up for that deal is also a massive win for them at the dollar level he's going to be at. And, whether you're playing Blake Coleman up top there or if you're playing Mangiapane, that's an excellent line. And so I don't see a whole lot of dip in production. I mean, if people were up in arms that Johnny Gaudreau was leaving, Johnny Gaudreau is mostly a one-way player. Yes, he improved his defensive game, but I mean, we're not talking about a Selke quality defensive player. Will they miss the tenacity that Matthew Tkachuk brought? Of course they will. That quality is in a short supply around the National Hockey League for a guy that can score 40 plus and get you 100 points. But Jonathan Huberdeau is a guy that can do the job. He's going to be an excellent fit for the Calgary Flames. And, if their window to win is now, or if it's a 5-year window, you'll take, 5 good years or 4 out of 8 or whatever the number ends up being. I mean, and the other thing about Huberdeau, he's a fitness fanatic. So that contract may age better than some people think. I mean, yeah, there's some comparisons to the Blake Wheeler deal, Remo, where later on, maybe you're not getting an 80-point or 100-point guy. Huberdeau is still super smart. He's got great vision. He's an exceptional passer, and he's a great finisher. So he's always going to be able to get you those power play points. And because of his skating ability, that contract could probably age better than a lot of people think it might right now. And guess what? When you play in a Canadian market or some Canadian markets or the majority of the Canadian markets, sometimes you got to pay a premium. The Flames have done that, and they've kept themselves in position to contend. So now it's up to them to get past the hurdle that they got, sort of ran into the freight train of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl last year. But hey, they still have, I think they have one of the best, if not the best goalie in the Pacific Division in Jacob Markstrom. With all due respect to, Robin Lehner. When Lehner's healthy, he's one of the best as well, for sure. Thatcher Demko at times can be the best. I mean, Jack Campbell's shown at times he can be very good. But, I mean, if you're asking me to choose, I'm probably picking Markstrom out of that 4. But the big thing for the Flames now, they're going to have to get more from Dan Vladar out of the backup role, Remo, because Markstrom played a bit too much and he kind of ran out of steam last year when it came to that series and that Battle of Alberta. But Huberdeau signed me up for saying, hey, I understand a lot of people are lining up to scream, and that's that deal's going to hurt Brad Chaleving down the road. The Flames have to worry about winning right now. And right now, Jonathan Huberdeau helps the Flames win. And I think he's going to continue to help the Flames win for the majority of that contract. So that's where I stand on that.
I am with you, Ken. He's got a point per game player last 4 seasons, second to the Art Ross last year, 115 and 80. They are built to win now. They got the goaltending. They were ready to give that money to Johnny Gaudreau. Why not give it to Jonathan Huberdeau? Moving on from the NHL, Ken. I know you didn't see a whole lot of the Bombers game, but gotta talk about it. It's been, we haven't talked about the Bombers here for a bit. So I mean, man, 9-0. Just put them on the Grey Cup already, right?
Well, I
perfect
think
season. It's coming.
Well, hey, man, it's some folks may not like it, but there are some Patriot-esque qualities happening right now. For the blue and gold when you're talking about perfect seasons. But I think Mike O'Shea would be the first to tell you that he doesn't want it to end the way that the Patriots' almost perfect season ended. You have to applaud the way the defense has been playing, right? I mean, especially that stretch. I mean, people don't want to hear about schedule, just like they don't want to hear about in the NHL. But the stretch the Bombers just went through with the 3 consecutive road games in a couple short weeks. I mean, it's impressive what they were able to do. And then look at who was out of the lineup for that stretch of time with Ellingson and Jeffcoat missing some time there. I mean, they've had that next man up mentality for a long time. And yes, people get sick of hearing it, but that doesn't happen by accident. This is a culture thing for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. It's a credit to Kyle Walters and Mike O'Shea and their staff, but the players they've been able to find, the depth at the important positions, and they've done just an exceptional job of finding talent. And they don't make any excuses, right? I mean, it's easy. It's an easy thing to say when you're winning, but Remo, that doesn't happen by accident. You have to breed that culture, and that's what the Bombers have done. I mean, we haven't talked much this year about the Bombers not having Andrew Harris. It's still a loss for them. Yes, I mean, they're not having the huge games on the ground, but I mean, Brady Oliveira had a solid finish to the week last week, and even in a week where Zach Collaros has 3 picks, they still get the job done handily. They're going to play Montreal again next week. And then, hey, who's not looking forward to August 25th after the bye week? That other game against the Calgary Stampeders. I mean, the way the Bombers were able to handle the Stampeders coming out of a bye week, then they're going to be coming out of their own bye week after playing Montreal again this week on the 11th. So, I mean, I continue to be impressed. And it's not just a one-player show. They have so many good leaders on both sides of the football. And even it sounds crazy to say, but there have not been a ton of weeks where the Bombers have been clicking on all cylinders on all three phases of the game. And I mean, that's the one thing too. I mentioned the Patriots. It was not by accident. I mean, this is a team that is, you're not going to get perfection often, but the striving for perfection is what has made the Bombers as successful as they've been during the stretch. They have players that push one another, and they're getting contributions across the board on both sides of the ball, plus special teams. And that's another thing too. I mean, Remo, what were we talking about last year? The Bombers had to go out and get Sergio Castillo at the end of the year. Their kicking game is a little bit more in order this year, obviously. Special teams has been important for them. And I would say that the offense is starting to kind of get into a little bit more of a groove. I mean, it wasn't always smooth sailing yesterday, but they still were able to put up, 35 points? I mean, yeah, people can say whatever they want. I mean, Montreal's not having a good year. That's true. But, they put up offense against Calgary, and their defense, the bend but don't break is a real deal. I mean, these guys have been exceptional this year. And I think that this Bomber team, all they're trying to do is peak in November. But they're also not just coasting through the regular season on cruise control. They've had some dominant showings. They've had some games where, yes, they may have benefited. I mean, obviously there was an element of good fortune for them when Boris Beatty missed the kick against Toronto. But good teams find a way to win is what I'm trying to say. And the Bombers are a very good team, and they're probably an exceptional team by the time they get things clicking on all cylinders. So to me, I'm impressed by the way they've gone out to 9-0 record. I mean, is there going to be a loss at some point? And no coach wants to. People can say all they want. Oh well, this team could use a loss to get them refocused. The Bombers, as cliche as it sounds, it's 18 weeks of trying to go 1-0. That's how it works in the building there. That's how their preparation goes, and that starts from the top down. But every week, the Bombers have found a way to be ready and be up for their opponent. They haven't had any of these built-in excuse sleeper games where they say, oh, well, we had 3 games in 11 days. Too bad for us. No, they just go out and try to find a way to win, and they've found a way to win every week, and they know they still have a little bit more to give, and I think that's a scary thing. If you're a member of the BC Lions or the Calgary Stampeders, you're thinking you had all the benefits, and you still haven't found a way to knock these guys off, and people can say what they want. Like, this isn't the New York Giants situation where you have pushed the opponent like they did to the New England Patriots the year that they did knock them off in the Super Bowl. But at the same time, I don't think there's one member of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers saying, hey, book the tickets to Regina. We've got this in the bag. I mean, that's also part of the reason they've been able to have success is because they don't get overconfident. They have a supreme level of confidence, but they don't get complacent. And that is why they've been able to continue to sort of use that steamroller and continue to be a freight train in the Canadian Football League.
Yeah, the Bombers are always trying to get better. They're never satisfied. You love that mindset from them and Coach Mike O'Shea. You are in Minneapolis for the Blue Jays game. We haven't even touched on the trade deadline. What's going on? Did Blue Jays do enough, Ken? And how about this Whit Merrifield acquisition? It seems like the drama is over. He will be able to play the home games, and he was making an impact at St. Paul downtown Minneapolis last night.
Yeah, indeed. A couple hits. I love the fact that Merrifield, in his interview with Hazel May, was talking about being disappointed to have struck out too much for a guy who's a contact hitter. And it's certainly an interesting acquisition on a number of levels. Obviously, he talked about it before the game. He has been vaccinated. He will be with the Jays when they get back home. So that obviously too, people who, if you thought Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro were going to acquire somebody on a roll of the dice, you have not been paying attention to the acquisitions the Toronto Blue Jays have made over the last several seasons. Could they have done more? Sure. I mean, of course, that's true. I mean, they didn't get that marquee starter. They didn't get that, guy that's coming out of the pen throwing 101. Sometimes they've run into some teams like the Tampa Bay Rays who have these guys. They seem to pull out anonymous players out of the bullpen who are, throwing 100 miles an hour every time. But they added some important arms. Some will be used in high leverage. The one thing for the Jays, too, that is interesting to monitor here, Remo, they were waiting on Nate Pearson, basically. Like if Nate Pearson can somehow get healthy in the next 2 months here before October, there you have your 98-mile-an-hour fastball with absolute filth coming out of the bullpen. But until that point comes, you're going to need some guys to provide a little bit of help to Jordan Romano and Yimi Garcia. It seems as though they were able to get that accomplished. In terms of Merrifield, I love the acquisition. I mean, I would say there was an element of surprise, but based on what's happened with George Springer and that elbow issue that he's been dealing with, whether it's just throwing or swinging, I mean, for the last two, I mean, I love the way George Springer plays the game. I've been a fan of his for a very long time. I love the way he plays center field. He's a great leader. We talk about clubhouse culture. This guy is a winner. He carries himself with this incredibly positive demeanor. But man, between the leg injuries and now the elbow, I mean, he basically has been grimacing in pain for a good chunk of his tenure with the Toronto Blue Jays. So in Merrifield, you have a guy that not only is he a great contact hitter, he has great speed, he runs the bases exceptionally well. He can give you some cover in center field, which is such a demanding position. So to me, that's an incredibly smart addition. And I mean, the Jays have enough big boppers. They got enough guys that can hit long balls. They need a guy that can kind of turn the order over. I mean, he could hit at the top of the order if you needed him to as well. But I mean, to flip the order over, I mean, would it have been better for the Jays if Whit Merrifield, if they would have found the left-handed version of Whit Merrifield to give him a little bit more balance in the lineup? Of course, but that player wasn't available. Or if he was available, it was going to cost you, I mean, a really high-end prospect. I mean, if we're looking at the Jays, I mean, Jordan Groshans is the most important prospect they've lost in the deals, right? And they've got coverage there as well, between Hernandez and also, you know, with what they've got coming up in the system. And with Matt Chapman obviously sort of locked down at third base, I mean, they didn't really need Groshans to come up and be a big contributor, right? I mean, he may be a very good player still, but the opportunity for a team that's in win now mode, like we just talked about with Calgary, I mean, the Toronto Blue Jays window is to win now, because in a couple of years, unless there's a deal of serious magnitude, and we expect there to be one for sure with one of the two players, whether that's Vladimir Guerrero or Bo Bichette, but once those guys are getting close to unrestricted free agency, now we're going to be talking about the Blue Jays the same way we talked about the Jets a few years ago, and we're talking about the Flames now. I mean, the window of contention is now. So you're acquiring players that give you a little bit more of an opportunity to go a little bit deeper in a division, in a league that is incredibly difficult. I mean, obviously the Padres are getting a lot of props, and rightfully so. I mean, if you're a Blue Jays fan, would you have liked to have got Josh Hader at the back end of the bullpen? Can you imagine a back end that includes a left-handed guy throwing 98 to 100, and then Jordan Romano doing the exact same thing from the right side? And depending on the matchup, now the analytics folks are going crazy because you have two closers, essentially. You can go situationally all day long with those two guys at the back end. Of course, but the cost of acquisition is so high. And I mean, we heard the Jays were among the teams in on Juan Soto. I mean, would you have loved to have seen Juan Soto in a Blue Jays uniform, especially if you think you can lock him down on a 10-year deal, even though he's turned down $400 million? I mean, the prospect of Guerrero and Juan Soto, incredible. But it would have cost you Bichette and then a boatload of prospects. So I can understand the way they went. I mean, for me, the big one is Syndergaard. I don't know what the cost for Syndergaard would have been for the Jays in terms of their prospect pool. But again, here's a guy who's a front-end starter when healthy, would have certainly helped them, especially when you have the question marks around Kikuchi and with Stripling going on the DL, or IL, sorry. I'm excited to see Mitchell White here tomorrow, and he's got a good live arm. He's more of a swing guy, but if he can give them a little bit of stability, that'll help the Jays. But certainly an interesting time for a lot of teams. I mean, like I said, look at what the Dodgers have been doing in the NL, and look at what the Braves have done. So if you're the Padres, I love the fact that they went out and spent, and now to see when Tatis is back and when you have Machado and then you have Soto, I mean, wow, that's an impressive super team. But what I would also remind people of, the thing about the Padres that you have to be careful about, Remo, They spend a ton of money, and then like 2 years later, when it doesn't work out, there's a fire sale right around the corner. So is this the year that they finally turn it around and get it going? Well, if you're a Padres fan, you hope it sure is. If not, some of those guys are going to be gone again. But again, they're going to take their chances, and because of what they're up against in the NL, I applaud AJ Preller for what he's been able to do in terms of those acquisitions. If you're a Blue Jays fan, do you wish that their group had done a touch more? Sure. I would also say, I wouldn't say that this isn't the season that they were pushing all their chips in, but what I would say is that I think around this time next year, you're going to see the Jays be a little bit more aggressive when it comes to their acquisitions, but they always have to have that kind of one eye on the future as well. But their chance to win is now. They acquired some players that will help them do that, but they're also up against, I mean, we saw what it was like when they went up against Tampa last year. They couldn't hit. They couldn't hit Velo last year in the playoffs, or certainly not enough to win a round. Can you beat the Yankees? I mean, the Yankees, they're mashing it. But can the Yankees pitching hold up in the playoffs? Now, that's a huge question mark, right? So if you're the Jays and you're going into a series with Manoah, Gosman, and Barrios, I mean, in a short series, you're taking your chances. I mean, the AL East is probably, you can mark that, change that from pencil to pen. The Yankees have been kind of an average team in the last month or 6 weeks time. But I mean, they also got themselves better at the deadline. But for them, it's about if their pitching can hold up. And for the Jays, it's can they hit elite pitching when it matters most. So a good contact guy like Merrifield will help them in that regard. But they've got some guys that need to do the job. I mean, Teoscar Hernandez, Lourdes Gurriel, those guys have had exceptional stretches after really slow starts. But they haven't really, they're like the Bombers. They haven't really had a full go with Vladdy. Vladdy's had a good year, but not an MVP level year like he had last year. So, I mean, I'm very curious to see how the Jays do down the stretch here. Super excited to watch them live. And I think they're a legit contender, but much like everybody else around baseball, they've got some question marks around their team as well.
And thank you so much for hopping on. I have to ask before you go, what are you hitting this afternoon? Chain of Lakes or the Outlet Mall in Eagan, Minnesota? Take your pick.
Yeah, no, it won't be a lot of shopping happening for me. I'm just ready. Where the step counter has been off to a good start. I've already got over 10,000 steps here, even though no golf games to help expand those horizons. But probably just haven't really. I was here in November for a Jets trip. Didn't really get to tour around the city much, but probably buzz around a little bit. Get to the park early. As you said, maybe sample a few concessions. Know quite a few people who are going to be around the ballpark, so we'll be probably be rocking a Wake Up T-shirt. Try to see a few Manitobans. And
you got the T-shirt. Wake up.
Sorry, I should have pulled it out here, but I'll get it going at the ballpark. We got to do a little cross promotion, and I will have to say, Remo, I didn't get a picture of it, but I did have the Winnipeg Sports Talk hoodie. Got some good use out at Bird River here this week. Not on the golf course, but out on one of the boat rides. So I was very appreciative to have the August is when the nights get a little cooler. So it was good to have the hoodie. Always happy to represent the brand, and always great to talk to you. Great job holding down the fort. We'll be able to tell Huss that kept all the fires to a minimum. And now too, I mean, a successful marble race for you, Remo, and then you can punch the clock out like Fred Flintstone and head out and have a yabba dabba do good time on the weekend.
There you go. Yeah, yabba dabba do. You said it, Ken. Thank you so much for hopping on. Enjoy the streets of what is it? What's that mall? Nicollet Mall, right? There you go.
There you go. Staying pretty close to the Nicollet Mall.
Yeah,
indeed.
it's been a while for me, but I spent some time down there too. Thanks again, Ken. Appreciate it.
Take care, my man. Good to be with you. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks. Big thanks to Ken Wiebe. Going to the buffet is down in downtown Minneapolis. He'll be at the Blue Jays Twins game tonight. We may have hacks on, may not. I think I told him I got my time zone messed up. So I'm not sure if that's going to happen today. So, but here, Hustlers got a quick message, and then I'll be right back.
Winnipeg Sports Talk is brought to you in part by Not Auto Corp. Since day one on with WST. Not AutoCorp has been putting Winnipeggers and Manitobans into great vehicles at incredible prices. Why not get into the car of your dreams at a great price with the help of the Knott team? Pop down and see them in person and check everything on the lot at the showroom at Waverly and McGilvery, or check them out online at knott.ca. Another beautiful summer weekend coming up, and nothing makes a weekend a little better than the great taste of Little Brown Jug. Whether you're popping by your local beer store or hitting them up at the brewery and tap room on William Avenue, there's so many delicious brews from Little Brown Jug to make that weekend a little more refreshing. Try the 1919 or check out all the great brews in the summer variety pack. You can order online as well at littlebrownjug.ca for citywide delivery, or pop down to William Avenue or your favorite beer store or liquor marts and pick up the great taste of Little Brown Jug this weekend. Of course, lots of great sports coming up this weekend, and no better place to watch it and gather with friends than your local Boston Pizza. Whether you're kicking it on the patio, in the dining room, or in the sports bar, Boston Pizza featuring a great new summer menu, including carnitas, tacos, pizzas, and of course, pizza flights are back, a great summer drink menu. And if you are staying home, you can always check out their game day deals and order online at bostonpizza.com. And a summer weekend just isn't complete without a trip to our friends at Nick and Nicky DQ for those great DQ ice cream treats, not to mention those amazing new stack burgers. If you haven't had a blizzard lately, pop by Nick and Nicky DQ for all the great summer new flavors. And of course, you can do that at the DQ in Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, or DQ St. Anne's. And if you've got the need for a DQ ice cream cake, Nick and Nicky can customize it for you and have it ready to pick up. Call them at any of the locations, or even better yet, hit them up on Instagram at DQ Manitoba to order online, customize, and have it ready for a quick and easy pickup at any of the 4 Nick and Nicky DQs.
There he is. Thank you, Hustler. So great at doing those reads. Thank you to all of our sponsors. I see Jay Miller saying, what is a pizza flight? Oh, a pizza flight is like a beer flight where you have, the little beer cups, get to sample each kind. You get to sample a bunch of different kinds of pizzas. Shout out to Mesa Stormy, who's trying to get everyone to hit the like button. Yes, please hit the thumbs up down below. And if you're on mobile, just close the chat, hit it. Tells YouTube that this is good content, helps our channel grow. We're closing in on 8K subscribers on YouTube. So help us get there. Come on. I know it's August. Hockey news is slow. We did have that great Bomber game. I did want to get to some other clips of Mike O'Shea as we wind down the program. I think I played that one of Brady Oliveira. No, how about this one? Jeff Hamilton asking Mike O'Shea about going 1-0. We hear all the time how the Bombers take a one game at a time. They don't get too high, don't get too low. But here is Mike O'Shea being asked about going 9-0.
9-0 is impressive, Mike, and I know you go 1 week from 1 week, but just given that the first 9 involve 6 road games, and I know it's not an excuse.
Honestly, it doesn't even register like that. Not to me, not to our coaching staff, not to our players. It's just, these are games on the schedule that you got to play wherever you got to play them. I don't know that being on the road's an issue. I think it's a great time for players to get together and hang out compared to the previous year where you weren't allowed to leave the hotel. This is special. This is a great time for the players.
Mike O'Shea saying it's special. They don't care about when the games are. They're here to play them. And I said to Ed yesterday, I'm like, hey, did they ever talk about going perfect season? Hasn't been done since the 40s. And he's like, Mike O'Shea would give you the stink eye if that happened. And I did enjoy Brady Oliveira again. I don't think I played this one, did I? About the tough schedule before Ken hopped on. Well, here, let's give her on this one. Another one from Brady Oliveira.
You said it. I mean, the stretch that we got right now, no doubt it's tough and it's a hard one, but it's a grind. And, everyone in this locker room loves the grind, and we embrace the grind, and we love the process, and it's getting us better. I think you see every single week we're building and building and building, and we're getting better, even though we have this long stretch, but it's a grind, and we love the grind. O'Shea preaches it to us, and we're just falling in love with it.
I did play that one, but I still love that clip. Loves the grind. Embraces the grind. I think that's pretty awesome. We are winding down. We're going to get to the marble race eventually. Stay tuned for the queue to get in. But I will get to the Coolbet lines here before we go. Let me see. I'll bring these up right away. Hey, if you listened to my picks yesterday, I had Dembski over 50. He got like one yard. It wasn't great. So that was a big L, but I did get a W. I said Brady Oliveira over 52 yards, and he smashed that. So, I was about even on my bets there. We've got a couple games this week. Calgary -4.5. Dickinson, the coach, he's in protocol. Not going to be there. I wonder how that's going to affect it. Hasn't affected the line. Still 4.5 against Ottawa, who's not very good. We got Toronto, 2-point favorites at home against Hamilton. See how that one goes. I think I'd lean Toronto there, although Brandon Banks got benched. Surprised about that. And BC Lions, massive favorites. They beat down on Edmonton earlier this year. So yeah, -10. I think I would go BC. And yeah, Patrolman Pizzas, how about that 5.5-point spread for the Bombers yesterday? I think just bet the Bombers. That's the play. I will say my prop that I like tonight, I like going on the props. Receiving yards, Malik Henry, 55.5 yards. He's hit about 55, last game 53, but that's against the Bombers, and they're good offense. He's had some big games this year, over 100 yards. We can maybe do that on one catch. I like Malik Henry against the Forest, Ottawa Red Black. Pass defense, over 55.5 yards. And mad about the Horns. And here, we got one more message here from Huss, and then I will open the marble race line. Here we go. This is Hustler with one final message.
Winnipeg Sports Talk is brought to you in part by our sponsors at Canadian Club Whiskey. Canadian Club, always synonymous with the best whiskey, and now synonymous with the drink of the summer. The pre-mixed, ready-to-drink Canadian Club and Ginger Ale, now available in 6-packs at your favorite beer store or Manitoba Liquor Marts. And, of course, you can have the great taste of CC and ginger at IG Field as well, whether for the Valor game this weekend or the Bomber game next week, because Canadian Club is the official spirit and sponsor of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Canadian Club products found throughout IG Field. If you haven't tried the CC and ginger, do it this weekend or the next time you head over to IG Field. Also, big thanks to our friends at Assiniboia Downs. Live racing returns Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday with a post time of 7:30 p.m. Make a reservation in the dining room to try the incredible prime rib buffet at Assiniboia Downs or order off the menu. And make a point of coming down and taking in all the great action. But if you're not able to go, do it like Remis and myself. You can open an account at hpibet.com and bet on the races. And, of course, watch all the live action from Assiniboia Downs every night of live racing on the AS Downs YouTube channel at Assiniboia Downs, 885-3330 if you want to make an arrangement to get into the dining room for upcoming live racing days. And, of course, huge thanks to our friends at Coolbet for their sponsorship of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Remis will have the Coolbet lines today, but you can always use the promo code WST if you haven't played a Coolbet before for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. Big thanks to Coolbet, Canada's most transparent sports book. Stay cool.
There it is. There's Hustler. Let's go, everyone. That horn means it's time. Oh, God. It's so horrible. I made a 10-second clip. It's way too long. It's excruciating. I can't do that anymore. But yes, exclamation mark marbles. We will do the marble race. And no, I will not use last week's names, okay, guys? Maybe it's possible I screwed up again, but I don't think that's going to happen. I've learned my lesson. Put all the names in, exclamation mark marbles. And yes, if you are in here, hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button. We're at, we're closing in on 8K. Come on. And also check us out on the social medias, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Sports Talk WPG. We need all the help we can get to grow on there. Does Hustler get a marble? Great question. Mesa Stormy. And winding down the weekend, I don't know. This is where I talk about my plans. Got a wedding on Sunday. Weddings are back. That's going to be fun. Nice summer wedding. Got my F apparel suit all ready to go. I don't know. There's a movie in the park. I might hit that. The zoo, always on the table. Or I could get out of town and go to the beach. It's certainly possible. And yes, I'm very pumped, Kevin Kowalik, to do the play-by-play of the race. And I did mention earlier we had some Jets news. I got to bring it up. I'm really into what's the Bitcoin bot doesn't go away. The Jets news, the biggest Jets news, off season of love for the team. I want to give a shout out for them as Nate Schmidt and his wife Allie getting married. What a beautiful bouquet. Having gone through wedding planning, I can now acknowledge what a great bouquet and wedding pictures. I'm pretty good. You notice those little details like centerpieces. You don't notice those before you've planned a wedding. So we got that, and we have, let's see, another one, a gorgeous Neil Pionk with Kira and their 2 dogs. They don't have the dog names on here. Come on, Jets social media team. We all want to know. We love dogs here. Where's that? A golden retriever down below. I'm not much of a dog aficionado. No offense to dog lovers, but I'm not a dog owner. But there you go. Great pick here. And the last one, Mason Appleton, who still got an arbitration date, August 11. What's he going to get? If you want to put your guesses in, like 1.4 mil. Looks like a beautiful wedding on the lake. Mason Appleton going with the cream suit. Not like the blue that everyone seems to be doing. So a nice bouquet, beautiful lake wedding. And they did also have this is all the Jets news we got now. What are these guys up to this summer? And here we are, Pierre-Luc Dubois. He's been overseas, I believe in Europe, getting some sun on the lake. Here we go. And sorry, podcast listeners, a nice picture of a ripped Nikolai Ehlers at the beach. You're going to have to tune in here to the end to see this one, podcasters. And hey, one second, I'll go to the last one. Kyle Connor as well at the beach. The beach seems like the place to be if you're an NHL player in the off season. And I do need to mention, if you're making it this far or you watch the replay, leave a comment down below after. Who is the MVP of the Bomber game? What do you think of the Jets offseason? We need those comments in here, right? Or just give us a big, emoji. Write an emoji. It definitely helps us feed the almighty YouTube algorithm to show our content to people. What do we got here? How many people in this marble race? 129 entries. And I don't have to do any updates, thankfully. As far as TV shows, I want to give some recommendations for TV. I had these, Hustler, not really a TV guy. I don't think he's on any of the multiple streaming services out there. Now, if there's a show like the Unrivaled E60, he'll watch that, but here we go. The show recommendations tonight coming out on Crave TV, The Rehearsal with Nathan Fielder. If you haven't watched his first show, Nathan For You, that is also on Crave. Absolutely incredible comedic show. Kind of reality, but very, kind of like hidden. I don't know if hidden cameras. I don't think it's the right term, but pretty good. I'll recommend that. And also on Paramount Plus, there's way too many streaming services out there. I said Woodstock 99 yesterday, Mike Smith. That's on Netflix. I'll be watching that. But also Paramount Plus, Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe. I watched it while folding laundry. I thought it was hilarious. Beavis and Butthead in 2022. Plenty of dick and fart jokes. So if that is your thing, I'm gonna recommend that. And let me close the marble race entries. And we were supposed to have Hacksaw, but I screwed up. I told him 2:30 Pacific time when I really meant 2:30 Central time. So blah, that was a big, I'm giving myself a big F on that. I did just email him. I said, hey, Lee, I screwed up. And he messaged me. He said 2:30, and that's my mistake. I don't do that too often, but I'll just say I was feeling the pressure today as host. I had a lot on my plate, doing just about everything. I am a one-man show here, so I'm sorry, Lee. I think I was freaking out, okay? I was pretty nervous. Now, Manny Fran says, we got some show recommendations in chat. Waiters, that's the HBO Woodstock doc. There's a new one on Netflix I mentioned yesterday. It's the Netflix one, just came out yesterday. Manny Fran says, not a Jeter fan, but The Captain is a good watch. I'm also not a Jeter fan. What other do we got here? Prey, people are saying that. I saw that just came out. Time zones, yeah, damn time zones. Damn time zones. I screwed up that one. And who else are we saying? Other people, I like getting people's show recommendations. Gotham is a hoot of a show, says Frost. Titans on Netflix, says Stormy. Everyone says I did great. Well done. Plus, that makes it look easier than it actually. He does a good job. Anyways, so I got 139 names in the hopper here for the marble. Who else do we want to give a marble to before we kick it off? First place gets what do they get? Oh, yeah. The hoodie. It's like the green, as it says, like the green jacket of Winnipeg Sports Talk. The hoodie says Canadian Club on the arm. Not like those other hoodies you can buy in our store, on our website, winnipegsportstalk.com. Like store, reservation dogs. I've heard that's good. On winnipegsportstalk.com. We have our own merch, but it doesn't have the Canadian Club logo on the side. Top Gun, I haven't seen it. So we got 139 names in the hopper. Who else am I putting in here? Who else am I got to put a couple more. Are we putting in our guest today? Ken, long-winded Ken. Yes, thank you, Ken. Ken gets in. Murat will get in. Darrin will get in. I'll give one to Huss, Master Angler. I'll put in Master Angler. And also Hacksaw. We don't have a DQ cake for today. We will just have Bravo, Bry. I think you're a bit too late. Kurt Angle. Someone says Kurt Angle gets a marble. No, I don't think I'll give one to Kurt Angle. But I'm going to save spreadsheet here. 144 names. What's the date today? August 5th. Give a marble to the Horn. Who's the Horn? Oh, the Horn? Yeah. Oh, it's so hard to do the show over this. Oh my God, I got to turn it. I had this great idea. Like, yeah, I'll do this 10 seconds of a marble horn. And that'll be, of the horn. It'll be such a great idea. Everyone will want to hear that. So I'm going to load up this week's names. Load up. We got 144. Last week we had 147. Very close. But before we do that, well, it is time for everyone's favorite theme song from Tristan Rivers Music. And I'm going to turn it down so it doesn't blow off your speakers. Here it is. All right. I'll pull the chat up. I'll pull up the race. I was going to pick, which one? Cosmic Chaos? I'm always nervous. It's going to be one. I'm going with the dojo. Dojo's tried and true. I'm very nervous about this Bitcoin. I'm very nervous about teleporting. I think we all don't like the teleporting ones. You want to be a close finish. You don't want to have someone taking a shortcut to the end. And here we go. I'm bringing it up. Are you guys ready? And we are in the dojo. And they're off. This is today's list confirmed. They're starting off in the dojo. Reminds me of the movie Beverly Hills Ninja with Chris Farley. And they're going. We're going to see who comes out first. Going slowly through the house. And John Sekulik, who said I was doing a good job earlier, he is first going down the slide. Sambo is there. I wonder if he's related to Mark A. Sambo A. Darrin. I believe that's Darrin Bauming. And it's going to be Sambo and John. They're going down to this little jump here, and it's John. And Sambo gets more air, but there's Darrin Bauming. Darrin is in there. John, Sambo, Darrin. Lori loving life. What's up, Lori? Good way to live. All in there. I mean, going through the pegs. It is John leading Lori, and there's Jeff in there. Darren's still in, but John gets knocked up on some pegs. And here we are. We got a loop-de-loop coming. How are they going? Shooting through. Jeff. Oh, John. See ya. Over the top rope. Russ Lowen. Eagle Eyes. Everyone's going over the top rope on that loop-de-loop. Only a couple survive, and it's Jeff Doiron and Rob Mahoney. Look at that loop-de-loop. It is absolute madness how they're all going over the top. I can't even keep track, but if you survive this, well, you can survive just about anything. This is madness. And who's going to come out a hero to this little circle? It's Pretty and Pionk and Hugh Wachenko. Sambo's still in there. Jeff Doiron is in there as well. Derek, but it's Pretty and Pionk. Well, wouldn't that be nice? After the day I showed Neil Pionk's wedding photo, Pretty and Pionk is in first. I think he's going to have a bounce back year. He battled injuries, but it's Rob Mahoney, who's always very complimentary of me in chat. But no, Hockey Guy Jeff pulls ahead. This is madness here. We are going down to the wire. It is Hockey Guy Jeff with a short lead over Bozeman. Rob Mahoney, Hockey Guy Jeff. He's in the clear, going in. It could be, and yes, Hockey Guy Jeff is the winner of the Winnipeg Sports Talk Marble Race hoodie. And second place is Bozeman, Waiters, Hugh, and Mike Wynn. But wow, out of nowhere, Hockey Guy Jeff pulling ahead of everyone after just about, half the field got bumped in that loop-de-loop, and they're all coming down. I see Free Oleg, Phyllis, Renee, Les, Mark A, and there's a couple guys. There's Dino A, Janelle, John D. What a game. This was a crazy race, a very exciting finish. And well, who do we got here? Hockey Guy Jeff 1, Bozeman 2, Waiters 3, Hugh Wachenko 4, Mike Wynn 5, Eric Krewald 6, Val George, Rob Mahoney, Larry Eli, Pretty and Pionk, and Dino A. And we got a couple people coming up the rear. We don't quite have the flames yet, but will they blow them up? Saga, Saramega, Daryl, Morowski. Was incredible. What was the finish rate on this? Let's pull up some analytics real quick. We had 144, and Hockey Guy Jeff winning by just over 5 seconds. That's some quick math right there. And I know Bozeman, he's there. Ken Wiebe finished 21st. I saw Darrin in there. Let's go. Who else do we have in there? D-Train. Wow. So we had 144 marbles and only 41 finished. That was incredible. Ooh. Jeff Bowes, Leslie, look at all these guys who didn't finish. Remo's Twitter, I didn't make it. Murat didn't make it as well. Jeff Kabilisi, Spinorama Hockey, all over the top rope. Absolutely incredible. Wow. Well, what a day. What a day. Yeah, thank you. Kenny's Water Bottle says he nominates me for play-by-play for TSN. That is another question this summer. Who is going to replace Dennis Bayak? We'll have to wait and see. Anyways, we've hit 304. I have to put the podcast up. Thank you so much, everyone. If you haven't yet, please red subscribe button. Hit the thumbs up. or leave a comment after if you think I did a good job. I see them all. I do respond to them. So if you want, and if you're listening to the podcast, you want to reach out on a particular show, come to our channel and say hi. But thank you everyone who commented and said they enjoyed the show so far and thought I did a good job. But Hustler will be back. We'll hear all about his trip to Aikens Lake. I hope everyone has a good weekend. We got some good CFL games tonight too. We did talk about some TV shows. So again, thank you so much everyone for hanging out here. Appreciate you all, and thanks again, and see ya.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home! Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.